Ladies and gentlemen, the Burkina Faso forces actually took over the forest of Lafiera yesterday, the 3rd of October 2025. It was a sting operation, one which the JNIM elements were not really expecting. Now, we have to take something into consideration here. The proximity of Lafiera to Mopti. Now, there is a river that separates Lafiera from some other region before you get to Mopti. It is called the Suru River. Now, the Suru has always been, the Suru Valley, whatever Suru, has always been the resting place of the JNI. When I mean rest, I'm not talking about where they go to sleep or slumber. I'm talking about a destruction ground for them. They don't escape. Whenever they attack Suru, from our record in history, they lose over 50 in any type of assault that they've ever launched on Suru. They've always lost. But okay, we can't go for the big one. Let's try Lafiera. Now, we need to take into consideration how big Lafiera is. Lafiera is a big, highly populated town in Burkina Faso. But it's good to try. So they've been trying for several weeks. They go into Lafiera, and the reason why they go into Lafiera often is because it's majorly VDP components and, gendarmeries and all of that. So in a recent redeployment and all of that, the Burkina Faso forces actually moved the Rapid Intervention Brigade, which are the elite special forces of Burkina Faso. They were moved, to Lafiera. That is the BIR 10 and BIR 18. When you hear these early numbers, it means problem. Anything BIR 10, 11, 12, 18, 17, they are cream of the crop. Like, they are the special forces. So they were moved to Lafiera, and they had their first skirmish Monday last week. But it was underreported because they actually, neutralized some very few elements in Lafiera. Now, something happened that actually made the intelligence community look at things like, what's going on here? Some of these elements fled with bullet wounds, and some of them were allowed to escape. It was like an intentional, highly orchestrated move to open the escape route for them, right? Because sometimes when you back up your enemy, you have to give them an escape route, right? So we all were confused. Like, they had the opportunity to launch a decapitation assault. So they should have wrapped it all up. Why did they let them, So yesterday was one of those reasons why you should never doubt the intentions of the Burkina Faso forces. To me, I felt like I felt like it was a tactical maneuver to let those guys escape the scene. So yesterday, the Burkina Faso Rapid Intervention Brigade 18 and 10 actually stormed the hideout of the JNIM, like where they live in Lafiera Forest. Now, according to information that has got into us, this region, this hideout, has been under surveillance for several days. They knew they were there. Serious surveillance. Till the final moment of this element, the surveillance was there, just to give a confirmation of the activities of the element. This is where they deploy from. This is where they perform all their activities. Now, we need to take note of 3 characters in the Lafiera, sector. Ibrahim Al-Khattab, Aliyu Ismail, and Mohamed Diko. These 3, they call them the invincibles. They lead every attack that has happened in the Lafiera region. According to some people, they said Aliyu Ismail is their spiritual leader. The guy in charge of logistics is Mohamed Diko, and the leader of the group is Ibrahim Al-Khattab. Now, They were called the invincible because according to so many, they said they were impenetrable to bullets and all of that. And, due to the spiritual hard work of Aliyu Ismail. So yesterday, the unthinkable happened. They, according to information, they were the first three to be dropped. Are they invincible? When the exchange started, they were the first three to be dropped. So it actually damaged the morale of the boys that were in their camp. They were already surrounded and encircled. The rest was history. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a serious operation that led to the capture of so many equipment. Their bikes were taken. And I felt like at the end of the day, the Burkina Faso armed forces were going to, raise their entire huts that they built in the bush. You see those blue structures behind the soldiers? Those are the huts. So where they live, they are not scared. They are dwellers, like they are forest dwellers. They live in the forest and they can move at any time. But this is just a very, very big kudos to the Burkina Faso elite unit, the VDPs, whoever has really, really played a role, a very significant role in the defeat of these elements, most especially the so-called invincibles in the Lafiera sector. Now, the followers will actually know that, look, you ain't invincible after all, because if you claim to be invincible, why were you the first to fall? Where did all the invincibility went when the battle started? So, ladies and gentlemen, this is just another episode in the book. Look at the weapons that were captured. Man, everything was captured, ladies and gentlemen. Everything was captured. Now, according to what we heard, the Burkina Faso will now deploy a containment team that will be there running serious operation. A large containment team will be sent, and those 10 and 18 battalion will now have to move, because these are the offensives. They are the ones that liberate the contested territory of Burkina Faso. But the questions that we should still be asking is, what happens next? Where will the recruitment come from? Will the recruitment really come? Another question is, why did Captain Ibrahim Traore make mention of the black albino? A lot of people don't really understand what all this means, right? I'm going to tell you this. We are getting to the end of it. When last did you see a serious attack? We are getting to the tail end of this. Pressure is mounting, both overtly and covertly, and the Burkina Faso armed forces are getting very closer to the end of it. Now, a lot of people used to ask the question, why has the Burkina Faso armed forces not conquered the entire territory? Given the military wherewithal, the technical know-how they have, the unmatchable collaboration they have with Russia, I don't feel like they have the capacity and the capability to, to take all their territory within, let's say, a month, right? But it's not about taking territory. You can be everywhere, have boots on the ground, destroy major command posts of the enemy and all of that. But the question is, when you jump, you give too many spaces. What Burkina Faso is doing looks more like an attritional war, where you take every single capacity of the enemy. You take their combat capabilities away, physically, mentally, spiritually. You break. Look at the fall of Ibrahim Al-Khattab, Diko, and Ismail. It's like you are spiritually breaking, because you are breaking the belief of some of these elements that kind of feel like these guys are truly invincible. Now they feel like, oh, I'm not bulletproof after all. So Burkina Faso is trying to systematically demilitarize this element such a way that by the time they get to the conclusive end of this, you know, liberation war, because there's no war on terrorism, it's a war of liberation. The enemy would not have the capabilities or the mental fortitude or temerity to ever raise any type of significant chaos in Burkina Faso. Now, that is the first information of today. The second information is that the AES forces have now launched a joint military infrastructure. They've now launched a joint military force called the AES forces. It has been in the making for quite a while. The training had been going on, the planning had been going on, funding has been raised. You know, it has to be collective funding from the three strong nations. So finally, they've been able to raise 5,000 men, you know, that will now be operational. That will have their operational headquarters at the capital of Niger Republic, which is Niamey. And they will be using the former French air base 101 called the Bakane operational base. That is where they will operate from. And according to the information we have, they will use some of the most sophisticated weapons. These guys would, you know, they would be in charge of responding to the operations of highest, you know, geopolitical importance. You know, this is looking like the ECOMOG. You know, ECOWAS, once upon a time when ECOWAS was still ECOWAS, you know, even though it was an economic structure, you know, back then they had a joint army called the ECOMOG. Now the AES forces are now developing what you call, you know, the AES combined forces. You know, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the strategic location of their headquarters, you know, man, it's actually very, very good. And according to the information we had, it said they will be responding to any type of, you know, significant threat, most especially a standard threat. Now, Captain Ibrahim Traore has equally promised to further reinforce more forces to join this, you know, AES unified force. He said in the next 2 months, according to credible intel. I believe he can do it. The reason is because, you know, Captain Ibrahim Traore has one of the largest ground forces in Africa. You talk about the VDP, you know, and man, I believe he can do it. I believe he can meet that 2 months gap. Now, the commander of this particular coalition is called Eric Dabiri. He is a lieutenant colonel. He formerly served at the Eastern Battalion in Burkina Faso. His record, you know, goes ahead of him. They said during his time in combat, he was a complete no-nonsense commander. You know, he doesn't negotiate with the enemy. You don't take no prisoners of whatever. You know, he does the job to the letter. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is that with that. Let's move forward. Now, the last information we have for today. What do you think? What do you think about this coalition of AES forces? Do you think the 5,000, you know, military might, do you think is big enough to challenge whatever threat? You know, they still have their normal forces, but man, I just think the AES are moving in the right direction. You know, they've gotten out of the ICC. Now they have their own coalition military forces. You know, I think their judicial system has changed. Their, you know, economic infrastructure has gone to a whole nother level when it comes to, you know, when it comes to a lot of things. They'll be moving to a whole new level. And I think, you know, the change of currency will be in the making. And just like they created this, they will also bring that to before our very eyes, and we'll be happy to see it because it really means Africa is being truly liberated. Now let's go to the last information of today. According to Reuters, right, the US Senator Ted Cruz actually said Nigerian leaders sponsoring massacres of Christians by Islamic jihadists. You know, he said it's time to hold those responsible accountable. My Nigerian Religious Freedom Accountability Act to target these officials with powerful sanctions and other tools. Now, we need to understand something here. I don't know what this people's agenda is. It might not be a good agenda, but we have to equally understand that the leaders they talk about would actually have some secrets in their hands. And that is why this United States authorities have been bragging about exposing these Nigerian leaders that have been collaborating with terrorists. If they don't have the facts, if they don't have the details, if they don't have the leverage, if they don't have all the wherewithal to hold these people accountable, they won't be talking about it, right? So what I do feel is that most of the plundered wealth of Africa that has been used to buy, a lot of infrastructure, real estate, everything in the United States, they know about these things. America, they know about everything, except if you're trying to deviate from the American interests. Now, I don't know why they're doing this, but I think for whatever reason they are doing this, it's not really the best reason. But at the end of the day, it's not really for the best interest of the Nigerian people. But at the end of the day, there is a big fact here that terrorism in Nigeria is being sponsored by, majority of the leaders. Not all of them, but majority. Most especially, look at the situation in Bauchi. Is it in Bauchi State? There was a particular state senator, Buba or something like that, a senator, right, that actually sponsored banditry in the north. Most especially, this thing goes on in the north. Now it's spreading towards the southwestern part of Nigeria and all of that. So I do believe that whatever can be done should be done, but it will not be in the interests of the Nigerian people. But I'm not Nigerian. I'm not all the Nigerians. Some Nigerians believe that they are correct. Some Nigerians believe that, look, it's for propaganda and all of that. But at the end of the day, whatever happens, happens. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we'll draw the curtain for today. I'm so happy talking to you. It's a 24 hours call, and I'll see you tomorrow when I get home. I love you all, man. Thank you for watching, and God bless you. Salute.